better. And my bitrate is showing is pretty terrible, but hopefully that resolves itself in a minute. Just doesn't like classical music. Let's see if I can try to. There we go. I think I fixed it. Am I back? Is that working? Hopefully that fixed things. Burgundy? I don't think I wanted burgundy. I wanted something else. Back, skeleton horde, not give them flesh. That might be funny. Flesh shade, no. Who is it I'm looking for? Probably out of my desk. There we go. Berserker Bloodshade. So I'm going to wash these guys with Berserker Bloodshade. I might water it down a little bit. And we'll see how that goes. Hopefully Streamlabs keeps its proverbial stuff together. For a bit at least. I actually need that clip. You need a little water. Hey, what's up, Gear Guts? Yeah, these guys, manned that Wartrike, shiny new Wartrike. Did take a short hiatus from these beautiful orcs to work on a night rampager, but it definitely feels good to be back. How you been? army is coming along nicely. Only a couple models away. I shouldn't say a couple. I'm a little further than that, but zeroing in on having 2,000 points just feels really good. Ordered 3 orc mechs. Should be showing up hopefully this week. Those guys can scramble around and repair all the stuff. If I get shot up, because my glee is going to outstrip my strategic capability as soon as I put these guys on a table. So what I'm washing these guys with is Berserker Bloodshade. I've done this sort of skin work with Beltane Green as the last step. But I got turned on to using red as a wash and going back and doing some highlighting. It really just like makes a lot of stuff pop on the guys, makes the skin look very interesting. This is very strong orc infused music I've got going tonight. This makes you want to wah. This guy's great though. I love his claw. Claw on his jaw. Thank you. I'm pretty psyched. I mean, I think I only picked up orcs maybe 3 months ago at the most. So it's not too shabby, you know, for a hobbyist cranking through, and to be able to put out like a full army of them, a big full-ish scale relative game. I'm pretty excited. That puts me at 2 armies, pretty much at 2,000 points when I ever gonna get this done. Shouldn't be too long. If I have a friend come by, we can choose. Soon thereafter, I'll have 3 armies done, because I'm essentially 1 knight away. But, well, at this point it's probably 1,700 points, but the points changed the other week, but pretty close to a full army there too, so now I can be that guy who doesn't have to accept any excuses. If I want someone to come over and play Warhammer, I can be like, army. All delightful. But I'm itching to get these guys in the field. Like, the shiny color scheme, very awkward on a single model. Once you get them all together, once you get them all together, it starts making sense. The metaphor I used the other night was like, if I showed up to work in a clown suit, it looked kind of silly. If I convinced 20 people to show up in a clown suit, now everybody wants to know what cool things going on. And that's very much how this paint scheme goes. Once you see the fact that all the vehicles have super shiny going on, put them in a class picture, then it starts making sense. I honestly think this guy who drives the Wartrike is one of my favorite orc models. He's just like so badass. Got the bandana over his face, got the riding helmet on, he's got the like ultra cool shotgun pose with it like chained to the wrist. Proper move when you're the driver. There's nothing really all that goony about him. There's nothing silly about him. He's just like a bad brother. Just make sure there's a couple little spots in here I gotta get to. So yeah, I never would have thought it, but like red wash gives it like a really interesting look. I'll go back and highlight. Honestly, with something simple like War Boss Green. Just hit some of the parts that should be a little shinier that I want to pop out. look good. Essentially, they got denim, they got leather, they got a lot of chrome. I do have more chrome bits to hit. I'm just gonna lay you down gently there, buddy. It'll give you like a minute to dry. Oh, they shrunk these guys down? That is kind of a shame. See if there's any. Does this guy's jacket have anything on the back of it? It does not. All right, he's good to go. Oh, but I didn't wash him. Ha! Didn't wash him. This guy will get Beltan green. So the grots look a little different than my orcs. A little bit to stand out with. Then obviously when this dries, I'll go in, do up some face stuff, get some stupid looking eyes in there. I'm not going to be too self-critical. My eyes are getting better. Definitely getting better with orc eyes. My Snazwagon is evidence of that. It's originally going to be about 8% larger, but we're resized to fit into the bases. Ah! That's why the boss that sits in is so much smaller than the foot-mounted war bosses. That makes sense. Yep. All right. Interesting. So it's evidence. Like, yeah, it's not fantastic, but I'm feeling a little bit better about faces. I got a good gleam on there. This poor guy just looks sad. That guy looks psyched. He's doing a jump. This one model, more accurately, its name, was why I was like, yeah, I'm going to do a shiny up orc vehicle army. I'm pretty hyped about this. The model did not disappoint. Yeah, they're all like that. Every last one of these things got... I mean, we're gonna make people respect the shiny orcs. Every last one of them's got its own gleam to it. War bikes, Wartrikes, the whole 9 yards. This guy's got a good shine to him. Still got another one of these to do. Whoop. Oh, it holds a golf rocker. Who would have thunk it? This crew loves their shiny paint. There are stages to it. I'm finding as I'm a relatively contemplative person, where like some of the first stage is like I got to paint something. Iron Force is sitting at 160,000 points, but yet to add any chrome to it. I'm telling you, when I start taking pictures of this whole army together, like maybe. Well, I'm glad, considering you're pretty much like at that number of points, an authority on Ork Business. The fact that I got out there and did something, it sort of bring a smile, certainly makes me happy. But yeah, as far as the addiction goes, like for me, the first step was I get a model and I look at it, and it was almost always the next day because like weird stuff happens overnight with the paint fairies and paint curing and stuff like that. And you're like, wow, that's pretty good. I want to do another one of these. The sort of second phase is when you realize how much stuff there is out there to paint. And you're like, oh my gosh. I could do whole armies. Like when I'm done with this, maybe I'll do Necrons. When I'm done with this, maybe I'll do that. Or when you're like, wow, there's a case of orcs or Imperial Guard are definitely this way, where you're like, oh, I could build a whole army that's very tanky. And I could build a whole other army that's like crazed infantry. When your brain starts expanding, you realize just how much crap you could do. It gets a little spicy. For me, a huge point was right after I started on Twitch. A few months ago, I was like, yeah, if I build a combat patrol for my buddy Will, he can come over at any time and play the game. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I need a combat patrol library. Just ordered Panda 500 points in Necrons last night. There you go. Did you get the combat patrol? Because I'm thinking about getting that myself pretty soon. Mornfang. Now we're just going to pick little things out. We're going to nitpick. This guy, I've got to get the stock of his gun. A lot of the other guns that I did in this army, I just chromed the entire gun. This one I'm being a little bit more judicious. This will get a wash over it, so it doesn't have to be like plastic coating perfect on here. I want it to look like it's worn, beat up a bit. The rest of that's all metal, except for the nubbin. We'll have to get some chrome out and clean it up. It was a warrior pack, sweet. Yeah, I got some Necron business to do. I don't think it's going to be next. I've got a knight to do still. Got to keep that in mind. That's no small project. A knight lancer dedicated to Slaanesh. I don't actually know if you're still here, Gear Guts, but did finish my third Horseman of Chaos. Calling this guy done. I don't know. I may try brush a couple other little things on here, maybe shiny up some skulls, but my Khorne dedicated Chaos Knight is on the book, so I only got to do one more. All I need to cover Slaanesh. Break out the red. Look at this guy's bandana with fist in red. So you'll be able to just straight up play 500 point games in your own home at will. That's pretty cool. I gotta teach my 3-year-old how to play, and I'm all set. Bandana mask will a nice little splash color. Yeah, that'll be good. Alright, back to busting out some chrome. There's a couple little pieces of hardware there. So before I go chrome, wash this guy up. A little bit more copper work that I've got to do. That's nice and clean. Don't want to accidentally leak red all over the place. The front of the bike, it's got these on it. I've got to get some of this copper. Basically, both jackets are like you know, they're leather, but they've got this symbol on the back, so I want to do it in chrome in this so it matches. This thing's matching is not the worst thing ever. It's bullion. This is not what I used. What the heck did I use? Skeleton bone. What was that? True copper. Maybe it was bullion. That would be wild if I used that. Do one last little check here. It was bullion. So much for process, eh? Nope, it wasn't. Could tell one of them hadn't been opened yet. Saved myself from myself and my sloppy mess that I've got going here. Alright, so the hair that comes off of this thing is what needs a little scooching. Sure, I'm not grabbing this thing by the piece that I just did. And that the mouth of it will get chrome. In fact, I'll just go back and forth and hit both of them while I'm here. I got to do the same on the big boy. I remind myself that for a lot of this touch-up stuff, I really need to squeeze that much paint out. I waste so much paint, it's terrible. Sit face forward because you won't hit your bandana. You can sit face forward. I got no worries for you either. Oh, that is already chrome. Get in here, do this, do that. Dry the brush off a little bit. I can dip around. Other things that need chrome. Both of these got bits that need it. This guy's belt, it's actually a chain. It's got at least a chain going through it. So careful. You tell that every time I say we'll be careful, it means I probably screwed something up. It's the truth. I'm not too worried though. That's where his butt is. That's where he's sitting. Not a horrifying error. Minor lapse in judgment. Nothing more. That piece is hanging from. chain his dope gun hangs from. That's got to be chrome. Go, buddy. Snazzy. A little bit of hardware that's here. Try to avoid that glove as best I can. Here a little bit. It's looking rugged. Very rugged. Little adornments right there that I'll get. I'm sort of an enabler. So, like, you say I got a pile of shame to dig myself out of. I'm like, yeah, you know, what you got is a pile of good times for the future. You got nothing to worry about. Insurance against boredom. We have to get a little bit more brown over here. This is a hobby where you can afford to get a little bit reckless with, pile some stuff up. But yeah, there's just so much thing. There's so many things that you could paint that it really does get out of hand fast. Like I have to stay my hand a little bit. I know I'm going to get some Death Guard Terminators because I don't have any for my Death Guard army. I know I'm going to do that. I am just holding back enough because, like, I can foresee the next couple steps of what I want to do. But I got to tell you, like, it's hard. It's hard to not just sit at my computer and be like, I know I want to paint this, 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 this. Oh dear, Will. Oh dear. If you want to do the Atreides, I'll do the Harkonnens. It's so rough. It is. It's like, and it's the ultimate, like, first world problem. It's like, you know, you train up by going and getting sushi. Like, you could sit there and just go, like, I know I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this, I want this. It's like getting tapas. You gotta kind of pick and choose them. But you know what? It's plastic in a box. If you screw up and you buy too much, it's not like you bought too much bread. It's not like you bought too much milk. It's not gonna go bad. It's not gonna go bad. Alright, I'm going to wash this guy's face mask. Thanks, that helps a lot. Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm here for. I'm an enabler. I'm not here to tell you not to spend money. That said, that feeling when you do buy a bunch of stuff and you're like, this is so cool, I can't wait to paint it, that's what I'm enabling, is that good feeling. You can do it. I have faith in you. I think you're doing great, JMB. I think you're doing just great. I think you found something that you very much enjoy. I think you're enthusiastic about it. I think as far as activities go, you could be doing terribly worse things with your time. I think you're awesome. And I hope you think you're awesome too. But nope, I ain't that guy to tell you shouldn't buy more Warhammer. I ain't that guy at all. Yeah, isn't that awesome? Like, even just after a month. And, like, you will hit somewhat plateaus as long as you're not trying to, like, just only improve your craft and that's it. If that's your thing, that's fine too. But even after a month, like, you notice improvement. After 6 months, you notice improvement. Like, 6 months ago, these aren't amazing, but, like, I'm using way better techniques. I'm a way better physical painter than I was. Some of it is like, I know it sounds weird because you're not going to the gym, but some of it's like musculature in your hands and your shoulders. Some of it is concentrating on a menial task that was like, not menial, like micro task, and just building up muscle memory. But like, if I started with these guys, I wouldn't have yet been able to paint them like this. Feels good. Feels really good. You accomplish stuff. Pour out a little singular drop of black wash just for some of the hardware on this gun. Often what I'll do is I'll put a drop of water kind of near the wash that I'm doing, and I'll pull some over and just thin it out. And then if I need the real stuff, I can go back to that. I think the end of this gun, the barrels, is actually supposed to be chrome, and I didn't think I hit it. But yeah, the improvement is really cool. And a lot of it is just, for me at least, just putting time in. I do paint a lot of stuff. And part of that is that I started having that same recognition you're having now of like, wow, I can do stuff better, different, schmata. Just from what I did a month ago. And I definitely see that too. Like, so that's why I'm in there. That's why I'm like grinding stuff out to just keep improving. All right, now I should let these guys dry a little bit in peace. Get these wheels. I would have thought I could probably just hit them with a bit of ink, which makes them look rubbery, but I do think I'm going to need some straight up black. I gotta be careful and not treat this like it's wash. I got a lot of bike I don't want to hit right now. A whole lot of bike that I don't want to hit right now. This brush is not exactly in fantastic shape at this point. It's a beater brush. Well, maybe not a beater brush. It's graduating into a beater brush. I'm not gonna like use it on basing material yet, but this thing has seen its fair share of combat duty. It's a little easier to accidentally hit the wrong thing with it. Don't want that. Yeah, I like having a wet palette. It's there are obviously things that I use these cups for. Like part of the reason I pulled that out is this chrome paint not very good on a wet palette. And I knew that. I just forgot about it when I got started. I was like, I'll just put a drop down. But the wet palette definitely like gives you a bit more control over stuff. Like I was saying with this wash, I just put a drop of water over here and then I pull some over, and it's like if I want to thin the wash, I can do it really quick. But just play it by ear. And it keeps your paint from drying out when you're going in between things. Like for steps like right now where I'm going through all these models and doing stuff, like if I need to touch up that bandana, that red's still going to be fine. I figured a little bit of Beltan green, which I probably have to use on this guy's, other foot. So I can just wash my brush off. Dip what's still on here. Hit that part of his foot that I couldn't grab before because I've only got 2 hands. When you're doing like passes on stuff, like especially during the touch-up phase, it's pretty important. Not important, it's pretty useful. Makes me feel like a legitimate artist. And it will at least help you keep your paints from going on too thick. A lot of times you still want to add that water on top here, but at the very least, if the sponge underneath is healthy and the piece of paper is damp enough, just by putting stuff on here, just thins it out enough so it's not straight from the pot. Yeah, this part of the wheel's on the inside. No one's probably going to see it, but who's going to be lazy? Kind of get to it, you might as well. Just trying to figure out what I can get from my Space Marines to add to the army. Well, what do you have right now? Painted and unpainted, assembled and unassembled. I can certainly help you spend money. That's no problem. Yep. No, about the starter set. Did you snuck anything else in there? Because I got to tell you, the very first thing I'm always going to say is, do you have any vehicles? vehicles are a gateway drug to an entirely different sort of, not entirely different, but sort of a different bit of enjoyment, because there's painting little fighty men. Paint a tank, it's pretty dope. Big crap. Very different project. Something you do not want to deny yourself the joy of. I don't remember if the starter set comes with any Terminators, but I certainly feel like my Death Guard army is deficient right now for not having any. Just speaking from personal experience, like my combat patrol didn't come with Terminators. I feel like I need some. Probably going to be my next step there. Had some from the recruit box set as well, the Blade Guard vets. I mean, I think the main things that I find to be interesting when I've painted a lot of infantry, the two things are like vehicles and then like important characters are always fun as a treat. Now, obviously, like you probably get a captain, jabroni guy. You probably get an important captain in each box, but like for me, the capstone of doing the combat patrol for Death Guard was Typhus, and he's a really, really cool, way more detailed model. But doing some large vehicles is a heck of a lot of fun. Even doing the medium-sized vehicles, like these bikes are cool. You could get a trio of like Outrider, Space Marine guys on bikes. Dreadnoughts are an absolute treat if you didn't get one of those. I'm not sure if you do get one of those in the boxes that you got. And for how things look, and you got the Infernus. Yeah, and the Infernus is all just the flamethrower guys, if I remember correct. I mean, I think about two things. Like, if I'm going to play the game, what is something I don't not, and I'm not going to get into deep strategy because I just don't have any, clearly. But if I'm going to play the game, like for my Death Guard, I painted so many infantry that eventually I was like, you know what I need? Like, obviously, I ended up with Mortarion. That's fine. That doesn't really count. What I did in quick succession was my Fittic Blight Hauler, this guy who is a fetid bloat drone, this guy who's a hell brute. Because things this size, they look good on the shelf. And when I was playing, I was like, I have basically chess piece size guys running around. A few other big ones would be fun to mix it up. That's kind of how I think. So like the Hellbrute and these guys are kind of the size of a Dreadnought. But regardless of if it's like for putting it on a shelf or playing on the table, a couple chunky boys would do you well. Do tell. I love talking about people spending money. I'd be an excellent financial advisor. Not for long-term growth, but for short-term happiness. Yeah, Dreadnought or some bikes is definitely the way to go. Put money in my. Oh, well. Hit the nail on the head. I like to think I hope I at least helped set that one up. Dreadnoughts are awesome. And Space Marine Dreadnoughts are like really cool looking. And they look really good on the shelf. And they're just sort of like, just to sort of expand your painting, they're a different project than painting infantry. They just are. It's just the way that goes. Bikes look really cool. And then in terms of play, like Dreadnoughts, beefy singular units, kind of necessary, and not just be running with little guys around the field, but still small enough where if you're playing smaller format games, they fit into it. And bikes give you pretty crazy options in terms of obviously mobility. But once again, like if you like the aesthetic of the Space Marine bikes, it's going to look awesome on a shelf. I personally don't like the aesthetic of Space Marine bikes, but that's just me. But if you think they look dope, like they're absolutely gonna, once you put a bunch of guys on a shelf and you got some of those bikes doing side skids around them, it'll look cool. They're absolutely useful on the tabletop. Yep. So at about 550 to 600 points, like that's around the time when, like, if you're playing a bit or just putting stuff on the shelf, it's like having a few chunkier pieces in there gives you flexibility in terms of just learning to play the game and just seeing how your stuff looks when you're showing it off. It's immediately a tangible difference. If you look at the Sisters of Battle Combat Patrol, it comes with a Rhino transport and a Penitent engine. Penitent engine is like the Walmart version of a Dreadnought because it's just some normal guy strapped in and all drugged up into this weird thing that's got buzzsaws on it. But size-wise, it fits the same purpose. And strategy-wise, it fits the same purpose. That army poses really well together because it's got a vehicle in it. And it's got like a mid-sized Dreadnought-like thing. The Chaos Space Marine. Clean this guy up here. Chaos Space Marine Combat Patrol looks pretty solid because it's got like different sizes of infantry units, and then it's got that Ujamadingi Hellbrute in it, which I'm thankful for a brief period of time. Games Workshop was selling the Hellbrute single again, so I didn't have to buy the whole combat or Chaos Space Marine Combat Patrol. Oh geez, do I have to do eyes and teeth now? I think I do. Eyes and teeth, eyes and teeth. Oh, my people got eyes and teeth. Gotta find my white paint. Also means I gotta break out my good brush. Where's my white? Where are you, buddy? Did I lose you? White paint out here somewhere. Even if I put it back in this box. Matte white. Alright, here's where things get real. I am going to use, I hope, the best brush I've ever bought. I'm going to try to do eyeballs and face stuff with it. This is a Winsor Newton Sable brush. Oh, how the mighty have fallen. Get a little water on it. A dab of white. I'm not gonna lie, the tip of this thing does look pretty nice. It's a way bigger brush than I'm used to. Only need to get some brush on the some paint on the very end of it. I'm gonna be so sold on this the moment I use it. I know I am. Always terrified of. Oh, put my goggles on. My nerd goggles. Just sit there and be patient, brush. There we go. Look at you, you nerd. All right. Now I feel smart. It looks smart. I gotta water this down a little bit. Come on, paint. Form. Form. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, for a much bigger brush than I'm used to, it does paint pretty well. I'm not gonna just use it on the face. Got a little too sticking out deeper. Alright, I did screw that up though. Because the base of the brush is a little wider, a little less room to scooch around with. And that admittedly is a pretty tough spot. Yeah, the tooth is fine as is. It's a nice brush though. I'm going to continue using it for the highlights on these guys. The highlights will be where it really proves itself. But yeah, for a brush that's like many sizes bigger than I normally use, the tip on it is dope. What am I doing? This guy doesn't have any of that stuff to worry about. Alright, so that went smoothly. A little bit of a bath in isopropyl, but then immediately rinse it off. That went pretty smooth and wasn't nerve-wracking. Now I can move on to lazy glazy highlighting. There's nothing else I need to grab. Alright, so this is War Boss Green. No surprise, that makes sense. I will dab a little bit of War Boss, put it on here. That's all I need because I'm just kind of glazing stuff at this point. Just glazing. This will get watered down a lot. Grab a little bit of Moot Green because I used a darker green wash on my grot. So I like to use a lighter, shinier green on my highlights form, and then I can mix these back and forth a bit. See how that goes. Healthy amount of water right between these guys. Boop. I definitely got to get down with that, like rolling the brush to get it back to a tip business. That really been using brushes that were good enough to do that with. It's awfully bright. Too much. Out a little bit. Bicep a little in here. Just on the top where it should be a little bit shinier or a little bit brighter, so if he's out in the sun. Need to consider, might actually just go with straight gut ripper. What was underneath, it might actually be the best choice here. It's already nice and thin. It's very smooth. Right now it doesn't look like it's showing up at all. I have a little bit of contrast of techniques at this point. I may have learned to glaze with such a small brush that this just doesn't make sense to me right now. Or maybe it's fine. Maybe it's just fine. I think it's working. I think I'm finding my way into a little bit of a groove. Or a beefy, beefy dude. cheekbone a little bit. His line all the way that goes back to the tip of his ear. That stand out a little bit. Do that again on this side. Got a little bit of jaw that I should hit. This does hold way more paint than the mega tiny brushes I was using. It's all good. I just started playing a few months ago, man. There's no shame in that. No shame in that whatsoever. I painted for months and months and months. I personally love the fact that when I went into my local store to learn how to play the first time, I was the only person who had painted minis. People thought I was some sort of ringer that they had never met. Not that my stuff was painted great. It was painted all right. The fact that I wasn't proxying in all kinds of weird crap and wasn't just throwing gray on the table. Folks were like, "Oh, how long you been playing for?" And I was like, "This is my first game." They're like, "Really?" I was like, "Well, I figured I'd paint my models before I showed up somewhere to play." I got no problem with people playing with gray stuff, but that wasn't the business I was going for. This is some moot green. A gut ripple flesh added. The game is pretty complex. But it's definitely worth it. You just have to try it for a bit. Get used to the rhythm of the die rolling. Get to a point where you're not looking up everything every single time. Me and Will are just starting to get to that point where, like, the last time we played, we weren't looking up as much crap. But it's exciting. Like, as games go, it's more of an event than just playing chess. Like, there's all the table set up. There's like a lot of ceremony around it that I think is like a huge draw for it. Setting up the whole table and like sitting back, taking a look that you basically just constructed a battlefield. There's the difference of the armies. You know, it's really very much like, you know, who would win, a bear or a tiger kind of situation. Where you sort of eyeball what's on the other side and you try to suss out your strategy. And then when you're actually playing it, it's played with big chunky, numerically chunky six-sided dice. Which means shit goes all over the place. Like, whole units just get like murked. Best laid plans of mice and men style. A lot of dramatic moments. if the camera picks this up, but the highlighting absolutely helps, and all I'm doing is just dabbing super watered down paint in certain spots. Generally spots that face up a bit or out a bit, so it sort of mimics the light hitting a couple spots a little differently. It matters. It matters quite a bit. Some more of this War Boss green. And even if you never play the game, I know lots of people who just straight up paint because they like painting and paint because it looks cool. Don't let anyone ever tell you anything bad about that. Like, you do what you like out of the hobby. Have a good time doing it. Yourself a good time. His abs are amazing. He's so jacked. Yeah, you get him, buddy. I feel like I'm tattooing him with color. Just like giving him tiny little taps. Get his elbow. Yeah. Forearm a little bit. Just make some more color jump out. I am not joking. I really don't know how to highlight. I don't know what I'm supposed to be doing. But I found that even with me not knowing what I'm doing, the model just looks better if you highlight it. I think it's more important that you highlight it than you actually know exactly where the highlights need to go. The simple act of just a little bit more detail on it, make it a little bit more painterly and a little less, I don't know, just covered with the same color. I'm not sure some of the artists that I think are really good actually know if they're highlighting the right spots. I mean, they probably do. But I sure as hell don't. My shit still looks better than it would have if I hadn't done it. Really strange. And I'm basically highlighting this with the same color that was underneath them, and it's extremely watered down. But now I can absolutely tell the difference between a model I highlighted and didn't. And I think that is like one of the bigger lessons I picked up recently, is that multiple layers of almost no color kind of still matter. I mean, it's such a gentle amount of painting. arm a little bit. I think some of it may actually be the imperfection of doing it, like as you go back and do subsequent little amounts of it. Oh yeah, so much is understanding how light works. That's 100% true. I guess what I'm getting at, though, is if you loosely understand how light works, getting it perfect isn't important. And maybe that's just because there's so many variables in how light looks. Like this room looks normally lit to me, but I know for a fact that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, at least 7 lights on me right now. And there's no way my mind can put that all together and come up with and replicate that lighting model on this, and that doesn't matter. The fact of the matter is most of the light's coming from above. Yeah, there we go. Starting to get into art chat. Yeah, I think that's the big lesson I've been learning, and is that you're capturing light in an interesting way. And maybe it's just because I come from like programming in video games, like trying to replicate real light so much for a realistic looking game, you think about it as like an equation and wanting to get it perfect, when in reality why so much stuff looks better on a piece of paper or painted on a model than it ever looks on a video game, because it's not trying to make light as it is, it's trying to make light often as it's interesting. Yeah. Will, when are we going to do a podcast where we talk about art? You don't know that, Will. You don't know that. I don't blur on. I know, right? You're like, I started Warhammer a couple months ago. Let me tell you about art. That's why I don't call myself an artist. Like, and there's no dig on the term, but like, I genuinely am not an artist. I'm a craftsperson. I work with paint. I think what I do is pretty. Not describe myself as an artist. Alright, I'm gonna clean this. I do have a little bit more highlighting to do. I lied. Forgot a spot. I always forget a spot. This arm and his knuckles. Flippin' knuckles need to be shiny. So, one of the things I did do is I now actually have a light that's right up here, right where the camera is, and it's actually set to really bright, and it's set to not be warm at all. I can kind of use that a little bit to just see some of the sheen come off the model, and then I paint some of my highlights over the spots that already look light. Because when that light's gone, it's kind of going to replicate it. And it's like a reasonably blue light. I should say blue, like it's a cool colored light. And so I can sort of pick it out on the model, but I don't have to hold the model at like an exact angle all the time to get the sense of it. And it helps. Someone on here before was also saying, hey, you could just prime a model. And I actually tried this once with a piece of terrain, with some of the orc terrain. Prime a model in black, put a single strong light above it at an angle, take a picture of it, set the picture aside, do your whole setup, and then just look at the picture and just highlight areas that are lighter, as they were on the picture. Don't even worry about how the light looks on the thing, because you already took a picture of it with it like well lit from one angle. And I think by doing that, I started looking at the models that I was painting otherwise differently, in terms of where the light was hitting them when I held them at a certain angle. Yeah, it was one of those like, huh, that makes sense. You know, if you're going to learn what's it called? Still whatever. I just like I'm gonna paint a bowl of apples. Like a lot of times when you get started, you just want one lamp on the thing. You want to keep your seat in the same place. Then eventually you do that enough. Still life. Eventually you do that enough times, and you could sort of emulate in your head where that light is. And if you can emulate it in your head, and you can start emulating more than one light. Oh yeah, certainly true. Put this guy back in his case. I feel like all I have to do is a few last bits of chrome, like on these guys' boots, and then I can glue this MFR together. Stay in your nice little spot there, buddy. Not gonna put my chrome on my wet palette. I think the only spots I shake this crap. I think the only spots I have left are the booties. I will find stuff that I haven't painted as I go on, but I think for now, just the metallics on the booties. Chrome toe boots. I shouldn't paint the bottom of these. I think the bottoms of these are going to end up getting glued anyhow. Nailed it. Sweet. Whatever, I'll just get the bottom of it so I don't have to worry about it. Dread if I have to fill in more chrome on this after this step. Alright, I'll set you down. So when I say not much left to do, like this will be the last section of these models that don't have paint on them at all. But I think may only have to distress this leather to be like legit done. Might do a little bit of a light dry brush on some of the pants. Might, mind you. Pants may not need it. Pants are in pretty good shape. And my grot doesn't have boots on, so he's safe. Alright, as far as the bike goes, I've got to clean out the inside, these two holes here. And I do have to clean off, I can let these guys dry over here for a couple minutes, which is good. I do have to clean that off right there because this piece of gear goes there. And I need to clean that edge of the handlebar off because I'm going to be gluing more handlebar to it, so I can get started with that crap. But take a moment to stretch, sip some tea. Have a puff, contemplate life. I am back reading the Eisenhorn Omnibus after finishing The End and the Death. Quite good. I do understand a lot of people's critiques of The End and the Death Volume 1 and 2, but much as I understand them, I think every once in a while, with a really long book, everyone's got a problem with the fact that it doesn't resolve things quickly. I think there's a little bit of a... It's not a false promise, like no one's lying to you, but when you read a book that's in several volumes, it's not broken up mechanically like a book is broken up into 3 acts per book. So that leaves you with a bunch of stuff based on its scale that feels like, wow, like this plot doesn't matter. And there are plenty of people that legit think certain plots in the book don't matter. I like them all. It was tough to keep up with all of them. There was a lot of characters that I was unfamiliar with, but still found it a good read. I just took it at face value and was like, well, it probably matters to the story because the author put it in there. But in a book about cycles of time and predestination and a bunch of other stuff like that, none of that crap's getting fully resolved to the end of the book. Like, that's just life. So if you get to the end of volume 1 and you feel like you didn't get a payoff, well, that's because that's not when the payoff's supposed to be. It's a big, big book in 3 volumes. It is a thick piece of reading, but I found it very fulfilling. I highly recommend it. It is a bit tough to keep up with a lot of the plots. But if you expect it to just be like 2 fight scenes, it is a lot more than that. So what I'm doing right now is just taking some pretty darn strong, about as strong as you can get, isopropyl alcohol, and removing paint. Sections of this model are going to be glued in a few minutes. So those posts will go in there. This thing is going to be where this guy's handlebar arm fits in. I only need to get rid of the circular part, really. This way, plastic glue will have plenty of purchase. Plastic to plastic coverage do its job. I find this a little easier to just paint the models how I want to paint them, and then go back with a relatively precise, as a lip gloss. Disposable lip gloss doohickey. Get these in stacks. Just wipe the thing clean later for when I'm gluing. This guy I will wait to do that with. Exactly how that little dude's supposed to fit. The gas grot. It's kind of weird like that. I think he's got to be like this. One of his feet on the thing? We'll find it. We'll cross that bridge when we get to it. He may just be stuck getting super glued. All right. So those bits, I'm just gonna let them dry. Nice and crispy. I will find the old dry brushy thing. I'll grab a little bit of Screaming Skull that I will mix elsewise with something a little bit lighter. Find something I can dry brush with. Put him away. Get a new one. Be a little bit crazy. Pull a new one. Because I still haven't run out of these out of the same makeup set I got months ago. I can still pull new dry brushes out. It's a good flex. Grab a dab of Screaming Skull. We'll also grab a dab of something darker like Mornfang. Which I can just use this used guy up. Some of that over here in case I need it. Shouldn't need much. In case this is a little too light for distressing. Ooh. I didn't close that thing completely. Yeah, there's a little bit of paint coming out of the back of it. Gotta be careful. Do this, grab a little of that. A bit darker. There we go. There we go. Yep. What I will do now, make sure my hands are nice and dry, is the spots of the leather that could just get lightened up a little. Just going to dry brush a little bit. Not a ton. Helps things look a little prettier. A little bit of texture stand out. Hey, what's up, Scannion? Just wawing away here. Probably putting this bike together pretty soon, to be honest. Seriously close. How you been? Not well. I am sorry to hear that, friend. Want to chat about it? Or put it behind you? Hospital for days, jeez. I am very sorry to hear that. Is everything all right? Like, I guess, I mean, obviously everything's not all right. Have things improved? Oh, Jesus. I mean, if you want me to stop crying, just let me know. But like, what happened? Injury to leg, infection, severed Achilles tendon. Good Lord. Morale not the greatest. Well, I am still happy to see you. I hope recovery goes pretty decently. But man, I feel for you. That sounds terrible. What's up, Mr. Motorhead? A little bit more of this brown that I grabbed. One thing. Yeah, I'm pretty psyched about how the color turned out. A little scared in the beginning, but it works well, especially with the other bikes and the buggies and stuff. It is, it's turning out. As I've mentioned a couple times in the last few days, like, the scheme as a whole makes very little sense when you look at one model. Then when you see a bunch of them that are all kind of chromed up and shiny, it starts to come together. And a metaphor I've used is like, if I go to work dressed as a clown, people are like, what the heck is wrong with you? But if I convince 20 people to show up to work dressed as clowns, now all of a sudden people are interested in hearing what the heck's going on and what's this cool thing happening. That's basically how this army works. It's like, until you see enough of it, it looks pretty dumb. And then when you see enough of it, it looks aight. Alright, that is getting close. I'm gonna grab a dab or Screaming Skull. It is the boss bike. You got it. 100% the boss bike. Just going dangerously. That. Bossing around. Something a little lighter for some of the edges of this stuff. There we go. He rides a tricycle. Isn't that adorable? Yeah, so I think as far as the bike goes itself, like it's pretty darn close. I've got to hit it with like little something else, but I think it's only going to be like along very specific edges. So I think I'm pretty safe to like, I want to actually get it put together, just so that I can see like the bits that have opposing colors, how they fit in with it. And then I think it's probably going to get dry brushed a little bit, but like just to kind of pick up the edge highlight, but in a softer way than actually like running a brush across it. And then we should be good. We should be good. Make some silver with your base. Ah. So one of the things that I did do with this, and it probably doesn't show up under the light, is that it was primed black and then I dry brushed it with not silver but lead belcher the whole way through. And so it's a little bit subtle, but I can see it from here. Like there is some of that coming from the underneath, but it needs a little bit of dry brush, I think, just to get it to turn that corner. I swear in person it shows up. I swear by it. Alright. I am going to clean thoroughly this dry brush so I don't get it immediately started down the dark path of getting crusty. Yeah, so I don't want to do hard edge highlights with like watered down paint. And like, I don't want it to be liney, because it does look like the thing went through like to a car shop, which is good. But I find that by dry brushing and pretty much focusing on the edges, you get a little bit of that, but it's smoothed out a little bit more, so it's not quite as profound. Doesn't look as much like cartoony. If that makes sense. Comic-y. Ah, no, it's silver mixed with base. All right. That brush looks relatively clean. Be safe with that guy. Hide you back here with the safe brushes. Ah, it's how to do a bronze cannon. I dig it. I dig it. All right, how comes the glue? First thing I'm going to do is get the driver in here. I think his butt, I'm only going to worry about fusing, plastic fusing the handlebar in there. His butt is going to get crazy glued in. This part I got to hold true for a bit. So I'll put a dollop on his keister of jet. And that's mostly just to sort of give him a point of contact. Yeah, Master's Brush Cleaner. Is that stuff in the tan sort of shoe shine looking situation? Yeah. Good stuff. All right, buddy. Snuggle right in. This I've got to actually hold up there like that for a second. Pressure in there. Just let it settle. That stuff absolutely takes brushes back from the brink. What I've taken to doing is like dampening the brushes, sort of swirling them around in there, and letting the sort of like soapy foam sit in there for a little bit. And then I have a very cheap jewelry cleaner thing, and I'll just get some like lukewarm water, put it in there, drop them in there, and just run it on one cycle so it's just vibrating the soap all over the place, and then I'll pull them out and wash them a second time, and the second time I pull them out, they're like in very happy shape. Yeah, I basically take like almost always the first brush that I use is like a big old brush, and I just dab in, probably like more like a half teaspoon of water first. Right, that guy is in there to win there. Step 2 is figuring out this guy's fit, and I think this guy may end up being all jet glue. Well, I could. His foot is actually a little bit molded to stand on that thing. Oh, it might just be jet glue underneath his right foot. Because this thing does have a divot in it that I'm only just seeing now. That is definitely for how it sits. This centerpiece here. Careful, scrub away a little bit of paint over here. Stressing the if I'm careful, I basically just have to floss it off. Should find a place to get solid plastic contact. There we go. Q-tip to just wipe. That's good. That is good. Makes sense. I can do the same with this section of shoe. Just take the paint down, and that comes off super fast on there. That's relatively new. Give this a wipe. He will sit happily like that and get some plastic to plastic contact. Once again, though, Going to be a mixed technique here. It's going to need some jet on the other side. You don't pour the jet out while you're doing it. Oh yeah, I definitely use warm water. Not too hot. This guy around, make sure I'm making good contacts. Sitting in there, buddy. Just leave a finger on his shoulder to make sure that the plastic to plastic is solid and good. It's a lot of what we do here is just talk shop. Just some old timers rapping about what works and what don't. That is not sticking. A bit more on the base. Gotta sit in there proper. There you go. Now I can feel it. I do think I'm going to hit the headlights of this with a little bit of red. There we go. Been cleaning brushes, have a few brown waters and watch. Yeah. It's good to take time, just sort of chill back, and I'm looking forward to that soon because my space is such a mess these days. I basically haven't reorganized anything since I started the Orks like a couple months ago, a few months ago, probably closer to 3 months ago at this point. And I have a lot of stuff that I've cleaned brushes since then, but not gone through the entire litany of them. I haven't reorged. I'm actually looking forward to sitting back, cleaning everything up, getting it in tip-top shape again. It's definitely time. A little bit. Oh, this bottle does not want to open. There we go. I have to clean it a little bit. A little dab. Red ink. Maybe a little bigger dab. While he's drying in there, just gonna dab some ink in these headlight sections, give a little bit more splash of color up front. wiggle. Yeah, I'm not very confident that guy's going to sit there very well. He may need a little bit more glue. May have to fix him in by force. So I definitely do not do like the full cleaning every session. Definitely do not. I'd be lying if I said I did. But what I do with my brushes afterwards, for the most part, is I give them a pretty thorough rinse with isopropyl alcohol, and then a very thorough rinse with water, and then I sort of work them back into shape. Sometimes with a little bit of spit, and then generally once on the weekends, I will go through and for the main brushes that I'm using, 2 to 3 glasses of water for rinsing during painting. I cap out at 2. But truth be told, they are not cleaned out every single time I go in. But I have like one here, one here. I generally have one that I go into with the brush the first time. I basically go into water to get as much of the pigment and stuff off of it, into isopropyl to break up a little bit more, and then into a larger, generally cleaner bath of water for the third one, and then I just sort of wipe it down on this paper towel. And that works to keep them in generally good shape, but generally on the weekends, what I'll do is I'll grab a bunch of the brushes that I'm using the most often, and then put them through the wash cycle. Yeah, I'm just not that meticulous yet. Just not. There's nothing wrong with being that meticulous, but as a human being in this process, I mean, a lot of what I'm doing is sliding into the end of my day, and a lot of times when I tap out of this, it's like this is like I say goodbye, folks, and I turn off my lights and I just flop into bed. On the weekends, though, my sessions are much more regimented. Like on the weekends, I come in, it's still a total mess in here, but like I'll spend a half hour cleaning brushes before I get started on the weekends. But during the week, it's like get in, get painting, get out. This guy's just gonna get jet glue. I think it's safer that way. I think if I try to scrub that thing down, I'm gonna drip all over the place. All right, this guy feels a lot more solid on there now. Got this front piece. I do need to dab a little bit of red ink on this to get the whatever meter colored in. The wahometer. I will hit this chrome gas can with a little bit of red on there just to spruce it up. Brush is pretty spent. Let you sit. Yeah, I'm definitely more meticulous with like other stuff, like my kitchen knives, like because I grew up cooking in kitchens all the time. Like I am very meticulous with those. Fishing equipment, very meticulous with that stuff. Garage tools, very meticulous with that. This space has like served multi-purpose. Um, it's sort of a different way for me later, but I mean the other catch is this space is also just the most, not the most, but it's a very suboptimal space. Um, one of the things I'm very excited about is hopefully moving soon, a couple weeks, and then getting started on a proper workshop. Like the right situation for me wouldn't be that I was working on a third of this desk, which is a big L-shaped desk. Like the optimum case is I would be in the middle of it and have a lot of stuff to my left and right that was like within easy reach on the walls, things like that, that I can like grab something and then put it back easily. That's not the case here. I do have a lot of stuff that I can quickly use to clean stuff up. Like I've got a squeezy bottle of like just Dawn soap, squeezy bottle, Windex, squeezy bottle, isopropyl, a few other things. Got towels at the ready, all that stuff. But this workspace also serves as like the other 2/3 of this is my desk for work. So it's a little bit of a struggle here, but I'm buying a new house to fix all that, so it'll get better. I'm also excited to just have a new garage workspace. I'm sort of outgrowing my current one there as well. Alright, these guys go on with the flaming heads behind the guns, which is pretty cool. Fit in, that's a good dry fit, so we can just get in here with our plastic glue. Get this all stuck in nice. Drop the thing. Stuck in on this side. Might have to scoot that kind of bit. Buddy, you gotta fit. Be awkward with me. The other side fit just fine. There we go. Yeah, I mean, it's understandable, but like you can still downsize and have enough space to do your thing. Like, I definitely am like trying to get my parents to downsize, but A, it's their life, so they get to make their own call. But B, like, I think some people overdo it when they think about downsizing. They're like, okay, I want to live in like 700 square feet. And like, I don't think that that's healthy either. Like, if you've got a ton of space and it's really tough to maintain, then I can understand the argument of downsizing. But still need enough space. And especially like when you're living with someone else, you need enough space to not be always tripping over each other and all of a sudden make your relationship suffer that way too. So it's a gentle balance. Like you can absolutely have too much space. Right now I don't have enough. Or at the very least it's not organized in a really good way. There's really no way to organize it in a really good way, but downsizing is just one facet. The size is one facet of the optimization, I guess is what I'm getting at. Alright, let's figure out how this awesome little grot is actually going to be filling this tank with chrome, not gasoline. It's going to work. I may go over that chrome with a little bit of something else just to make it look a little shinier. But you fit like that, you are just going to get super jet, and that's it, buddy. That's all you get. You don't have a ton of contact points, so respectfully ask you to just sit in there and fit properly the first time. For the good of all of us, and then I'll hit you with one other little drop of this stuff on top, and it should hold you right in forever. And ever. That's a big drop. I want a little drop. Just a dab where the gas meets. I'll get through nice and clear. And he's pouring liquid in the thing anyway, so I'm not too worried. In a nutshell, give this guy a wiggle. He's in pretty good shape. Might have to glue his butt down a little bit better. Give this guy a wiggle. He is in there solid. The boss is on there for good. Alright, let me just sneak in one additional little point of contact for the driver. Be out of sight, out of mind. Just under his keister. Basically floss his butt with some jet glue. But yeah, I can imagine any plans of moving are going to be on hold for a bit. Do you have any sort of like, they giving you any sort of timeline in terms of like things improving? See here, what to use. Silver. this. Just getting a little bit of silver added into the mix of what I've got from metallic on here anyway. And then doing some light dry brushing on the edges, little spiky bits. Not a ton, just a little to get it a little funkier. Little teeth. Little pincer doohickeys just on any of the hardware. There we go. Give this guy a washing. There. Dry off a little bit. Cue you up. All right. Show. Plan that was described to me by me. But I think will look cool. This thing is sort of burning out like it just did a slide. At which point, figure out exactly how I want to do that. If he's going to be on the front or the back, probably going to be like this. What I'll do is put basing material on here, then set him down and actually groove the thing over. So it'll look like it hit a slide. And then in the grooves, in theory, I'll drop a little bit of extra pigment or some extra kind of dust or whatever. So he'll be way off center on the base, but it'll give me some spot in here to maybe throw some like plant and rocks and stuff, little bits of scrub. Could make him rise up, but I already did that on one of them. I'll make him sort of spun out. So it'll be like a big old skid right here, like he just pulled up and went. That should be fun. I have a big pile of glop already mixed up. Wonder if it's still mixed properly. We'll put something down. I'm actually going to remove my dry brush setup or wet palette setup. Make a little space for base. Grab this guy to just capture any extra dust, grit, dirt crap that I put on here. We'll give this a go. I'm going to sit you back here to dry properly. We'll open, if it does open. There we go. Big pile of muck that I made. I should have a metal tool over here somewhere that is conducive to plopping this stuff down. Just gotta find where I put it. There we go. Big old scoop. Just a nice stir. Probably a little too wet. It could use some finer grit in it too. Maybe I'll buy some at some point. Get this stuff to smooth out a little bit, but basically big old homebrew basing material. It's pretty wet and sloppy up here. Yeah. white smooth. Put down relatively thin coat, smoothing it out. Okay, we are not playing this song. We are not playing the go to sleep song. That's not happening. You know what? I'm going to change this to something a little bit stronger. Like get into the later hours of this. I don't need to be putting the sleepy time music on just yet. There we go. Much better. Everything's bigger in Texas. I hear you there. 5'5", 95 pounds. Skin and titanium. Tiny homes, miniature things, yeah. Yeah, I can definitely understand exactly where you're coming from. Like, it is just two very different human experiences entirely. Um, my wife and obviously my kids are significantly smaller than I am. Like, I'm still relatively wiry, but I am 6'2". Like, do not enjoy bending over to pick stuff up at all. It's a long way down. I still think that everybody can reach the same shelves that I can reach. What everyone in my house considers to be an absolutely okay ceiling for me is low, and I might hit my head, especially going downstairs and stuff like that. So I definitely feel you in that regard. It's a different experience entirely. 1,400 square feet, it would not cope well with. And yes, I could and have lived in smaller spaces. But I'm not that at that point in my life where I gotta do that, where I gotta think that way, live that way. That would be claustrophobic for me too. I've also had roommates for like the vast majority of my life, and I do recognize the fact that like when everybody's tripping over each other, just your general quality of life goes down. People are less happy to be around each other when they can't have any personal space. Or when they do have personal space, but it's just like everybody's still. Every room is so close that you can hear everything on every side of every wall. It's tough. And like I sympathize with people that can't get to a larger space at whatever point they're in. And I've been there, but like I like my relationships to stay intact. Some of that is the fact that like people don't have to continuously see me all the time. You got to be able to sort of get away from the people in your own home a little bit. Doesn't mean you don't love them, but it is the truth. Alright, that is a big old honking pile of sandy stuff. What I think I'm going to try to do is just take this bike and push it in there. Now I'm going to throw a decent amount of dry sand atop this, season it. I'm not going to push the thing down super hard. I don't want it to scrape all the way to the bottom. Essentially going to be attached to glue that is holding all this crap together. We're going to hope that works, and if it doesn't, at least it will have made the tracks to the right place, and I can glue it back in later by just dropping it straight down. I'm going to take a moment and clean this crap up first so that I don't accidentally knock this bottle of fudge over. Make a huge mess of this entire place. I actually had a friend who had a Mini Cooper, and it worked out for him, but he very specifically just needed a really, really tiny car because he was commuting into the city and he couldn't find parking, but he had a truck for his normal driving, but just to get into the studio he was working at in the city, he was like, "Yep, just got a Cooper just so I could find parking whenever I need it." Yeah, I like big stuff too. I've been an SUV person for a while, but I just switched over to just getting a truck because it just fits me better. Alright, well, let's be hopeful that I don't wreck this thing. And what we're going to do, I'm going to put it down like this, and then I'm going to spin it so that it drags through here. I've made a nice groove and gotten some sand up all over the place. And I will need to go in, but now I have this nice groove right here. This guy sits, which means I basically can't do anything else with this right now. Yeah, a little bit of the stuff is showing through on the bottom. Sort of just dab a little bit in, sort of scooch some up. I will add more sand to this later. For all intents and purposes, got pretty solid groove in it. You mean like pushing it sideways, like it's literally just going vertical? Because I was thinking about having it spinning out. There's not a lot of space side by side for the wide butt of this thing. I can only barely allude to it on this side. That's how much it fits on here. Pull more to the starting side. You mean pull forward this way more? Pull the groove. We're gonna call that direction west. That direction north. So you're saying go like this? I mean, it is in an arc. It may not be that visible on here, but I'm basically pivoting it. I'm not sure I understand you yet. So don't let me rush you, because this stuff is going to be hella wet for a while. And I do actually want to understand what you're saying. It does look like a little smiley face now. So you're saying where his gun is going to end up, like, his gun's going to end up here, so I should start the groove there? And then just place the model on it? One of the few things, because the glue is nice and soft, everything's putty, that I can just redo as many times as I feel like. I'm happy with it. You're saying do the groove kind of like that, because the gun would be here. Groove start there and then end like this. Oh, it starts off the edge, so like, burp. Ah. It's sort of like this, obviously with some amount of fill in. Is that closer to what you're saying? I think that's a good call. Makes it more pronounced. It's a good call. I dig it. The thing that I'm gonna do is actually let it dry like this. See if the bike even sits in it. You know what? I won't. I'm gonna leave it a chance. Though that is kind of good up there that it's got a little higher up. I'm actually gonna scooch a little of this away, a little of this away, not a ton. And leave this to dry. Because then I can just set the bike in like this at the end of it. Now that it's been all smushed in, I could backfill this in with like a lower level of sand, and I'll probably put some grittier dirt that's even a little bit of color in there, as if it's like pulled the top level of sand off and there's a little bit of something underneath it. It does look like a dope smiley face right now. And that way I've at least got a little bit better contact point underneath these spots for the wheels. And then I can start dressing it up, which should be a heck of a lot of fun. I think that's probably where I am going to. It's a super happy face, a sneering happy face. At this point, I am going to call it a night. I do need to let this thing dry. I have to be patient. And it's been a heck of a long week, and I am absolutely wiped out. But the Wartrike is together. Oh, I'm actually going to scrape that down. That whole thing is going to get like, I mean, I can certainly give it a wipey, but that whole thing, I just go around that with an X-Acto and flatten it and then paint over it. But yeah, we'll I get them nice and clean and then paint them. I am going to call it a night. It's been a good, solid run. I'm glad this guy's together. Tomorrow he'll get glued in. I'll do a little bit more basing, but I will probably tomorrow either finish off or close to finish in base this unit of commandos that I've got. And then I have a Morkanaut to build. And then later this week, hopefully, 3 Ork mechs show up. Guys that can actually run around and fix all the crap I'm going to get destroyed turn 1, or at least thoroughly damaged, bracketed turn 1. I can have some guys running around repairing. And then this army will be pretty close to done. And then I can move on to kit bashing a Stompa. I wish you a speedy recovery. I know for injuries like that, they're not that speedy. But, you know, do your best to at least keep yourself comfortable, sane, chilled out. Catch up on some TV you haven't seen. And I wish you a speedy recovery. I can imagine. Well, keep an eye out for me. I'll probably be on this weekend. We can hang out again and talk shop, learn some stuff. I mean, a lot of what you got to do is just pass some time. Anywho, that is it for me for tonight. I got to get a ton of rest. I'm also likely on a lot of childhood watching duty in that this weekend, that one of my kids is sick and it might be strep. So we got to separate them, which means twice the parental duties. Have a great night, and we will see you next time when I attach this guy to his base. Thanks a bunch.